Hello, fellow vacation housekeeping professionals. Dirk Johnson continuing our conversation at the VRHP and VRM Intel Live National Conference here in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And we just finished a wonderful keynote address with Mark Adams, who is the president of the Chamber of Commerce and the CVB here in Gatlinburg. And they were talking about emergency preparedness and how the town went through the fires that came through here almost a year ago. So, Mark, you just moved here. What was going through your mind when that took place?
Well, I had been in my position for about 2 months, just over 2 months, and we talked about, even in the session today, we had emergency preparedness, emergency plan of what should go right, but sometimes those plans don't always work out correctly. And as you and I discussed, we actually had to evacuate our fire hall. We actually had to evacuate, immediately come up with a shelter. In Gatlinburg, what would have been the natural shelter in our emergency preparedness plan was our convention center. Unfortunately, it was surrounded by fire and in the fire zone.
Oh, wow.
So we had to come up with a backup plan for a shelter for close to 2,000 people.
Wow, that's tough. So what would be one of your key takeaways for companies who have to plan for hurricanes, earthquakes, fires, anything of that nature? What would you recommend to them as they start to listen to this and make plans of how they can be better prepared?
I think for any natural disaster, whether it's, I'm sure everyone does have an emergency preparedness plan, but it's also, what if that plan doesn't work? And also, it's relationships. It's all about the relationships, we think. You can have everything in writing in a piece of paper, but it's also who's in that Rolodex on your phone that you can call as soon as something happens. The media, state officials, usually a state tourism office, that you can call to immediately get assistance in getting the word out about what's happening. It's also important for cities to stay in constant contact with the stakeholders, all the businesses in that city as well, and let them know. And with the visitors, letting the visitors know, updating websites and through your media outlets, social media especially. So.
Wow. Excellent. One final or parting thought, you'd shared a story after the keynote about a particular waitress that was taking place with a family with a hurricane. Do you mind just taking a moment and sharing that with us?
Sure. It was when the hurricanes were recently coming through Florida. My wife and I were at a restaurant, and we noticed the server was getting a little agitated with a family that was at the table next to us, and because all four of the people were on their cell phones. Not uncommon in today's world to be on their cell phone. But she finally came over and she was like, can I, are you ready to order? Do you have questions? And the dad looked up and said, I'm so sorry, but we're from Florida, and we're looking at our phones because the hurricane is coming over our hometown right now as we speak. So the server immediately called out to another coworker and said, hey, take my tables. She pulled up a chair and sat down with that family and really experienced that time with that family. And that was really touching, I think, because it talked about, it showed human kindness. And I think that's what everybody looks for after these disasters, whether it's hurricanes, earthquakes, fires. There's so many positive stories that sometimes the mass media does not want to tell, but there's so many superheroes that come out of that, and that's just one example of just human kindness.
Wow. Excellent. Mark, thank you so much.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.